And we'll give it just a minute to allow everyone to enter the room. As a reminder, please mute yourself. Good afternoon. This is a hearing before the Boston Cannabis Board. Today is Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. Today's hearing is being recorded and is being held pursuant to temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. This hearing will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before we begin with some procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce. Oh, Kathleen, you are muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Just wanted to take a minute before we get started to introduce my fellow commissioners. We have Commissioner Darlene Lombos, Commissioner Lisa Holmes, Commissioner John Smith, Commissioner Alejandro St-Gian, and I would also like to introduce the project manager for the Boston Cannabis Board, Jasmine Nguyen, who's with us today.
Thank you. As a reminder, the various actions before the board today, the options are to vote to grant a license conditionally, that would be pending a buffer zone variance or any other condition the board seeks to place on the license. To defer, a deferral allows the applicant to submit supplemental information to the application, for example, additional information regarding diversity and inclusion or security and operations plan for the board's consideration. The option to reject without prejudice. If the board feels the proposal as presented at this time is not appropriate in time, place, or manner pursuant to the ordinance, or is so lacking in substantive detail that the board feels the applicant should reapply, the board can vote to reject without prejudice. This means that the applicant can reapply at any time, and in the case of equity applicants, they will be scheduled for a subsequent hearing upon submission of a completed application. An important thing to note regarding the rejection without prejudice is that it does trigger the statutorily required community meeting. And the final option is to reject with prejudice. If the board feels the application is not appropriate in time, place, and manner, and that there is nothing that can be done to change the board's position, the board can vote to reject without prejudice. And this prevents the applicant from reapplying at that same location for 1 year. Are there any questions regarding the options before the board today?
Leslie, I have a question. Reject without prejudice. That means an applicant can come back and pending the 1-to-1 ratio, they would be scheduled once they've completed the community process and they filed a new application with us, they would be able to be scheduled just pending the 1-to-1?
Exactly. So the completed application involves the online application. They would not have to refile with inspectional services because that's a separate process. They would have to have the statutorily required community meeting and a letter of support, opposition, or non-opposition from the district city councilor, or the 45-day period would have run.
And that letter of support, opposition, or non-opposition would be reflecting what this new application is. The old letter of support, the non-opposition, would not carry through to this renewed application.
Exactly. And in the case of an equity applicant, they would be scheduled for the next hearing as soon as they had a completed application. For a non-equity applicant, they would be placed in the queue to be heard pending the 1-to-1 ratio.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. So the two that we heard last week for reconsideration, does that mean they each had a community meeting?
No, I'm sorry. That's a good point. They can, if you are rejected without prejudice, you can also request reconsideration, which would essentially be supplemental information.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, procedurally, I will read each agenda item into the record. Each member of the board will have the opportunity to make comments regarding that application, after which there will be a motion, questions on the motion, and then a request for a second. The public is welcome to attend today, but we are not taking public testimony. With that, we will begin with the agenda. Item 1, the applicant is Evoke Inc. The proposed license premise is 1102 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester. The license type is a recreational retail cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is a certified equity applicant. The date of initial application was May 22nd, 2019. The date of filing with the Inspectional Services Department was March 15th, 2019, and the date of the community meeting was June 27th, 2019. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you. I'll begin. I just wanted to note for the record that this is an equity certified applicant, and they began their application process in March 2019. This is a strong application. The members of the board requested supplemental information, which was submitted to the board relative to the parking and transportation plan and how they would incentivize employees and customers to use public transportation. I was impressed with the supplemental materials. It's something we haven't seen before. And overall, I thought this was a strong application.
Thank you. Commissioner Lampos?
Agreed. Thank you, Chairwoman Joyce. A very strong application. Very high scores for me on D&I and employment. I do, just for the record, and I think I've done this at every meeting when we're voting, is that the high goals are very aspirational, and just want to make sure that we are supporting our equity applicants with whatever technical assistance and whatever's available. I know that all the applicants know that. I just want to say that again for the record, that we really want to support each of these equity applicants in achieving those aspirational goals. So
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
No questions, no comments. They were good. It was a good application. As the chairwoman said, they were strong. I appreciated their updating their information. I was hugely impressed with the traffic study that they did. That really stood out for me, that they really took the time to do this and to see how their business would affect the flow of traffic and the community and the times. So I was very impressed with that. So I think they did a very good job, strong application. My only concern was, I believe, the rear, where they abutted another business, about the security of them loading and unloading, but they did a great job of explaining that and making sure that their bay was just for them and that it was very secured. So I'm very good, very pleased with it.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. Yeah, I was also very pleased with it. All the answers that you provided. Thank you so much.
Commissioner St. Gian?
Nothing much more to add, just strong application, and thank you very much.
Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
I make a motion to grant this application a license.
Is there? Commissioner Lombo seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Item 2, the applicant is Cypress Tree Management, Inc. The proposed license premise is 1114 Boylston Street in the Back Bay. The proposed license type is a retail recreational cannabis dispensary license. Proposed hours of operation are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is a non-equity applicant. The date of initial application was July 25th, 2018. The date of filing with Inspectional Services Department was February 28th, 2019. And the date of the community meeting was April 29th, 2019. There is an existing cannabis establishment within a half-mile of this proposed licensee. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you, Leslie. I want to acknowledge the fact that there was opposition and there was support. I also want to acknowledge the fact that even some of the opposition spoke out in favor of the operators. I find this to be an appropriate location. The application adequately addressed the concerns on impacts. I think they had high scores as far as their overall plan, the diversity inclusion and their employment, the location and safety and security. In my opinion, I have no other issues with this applicant.
Thank you. Commissioner Lombos?
Thank you. I agree with Chairwoman Joyce. I had very high scores on diversity and inclusion. In particular, I know that some of their consultants have really high respect in the community. I'm glad that they're using them. I also wanted to highlight, I really want to hold them to this quarterly meetings commitment that they have to have with community, just because there was some opposition. So would really like to see that commitment follow through. And I also think it's just an overall strong application. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
It was a great application, although I guess I'm the only one. I do have a little concern about the location. It's such a dense area, but I think we're gonna run into that no matter what community we're into. So for myself, I don't know how to change my feeling about that, but other than the location, I think everything else they had was fine.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Holmes. Other than the location, I thought it was fine. Some of the community voices I listened really closely. So just have some concern, and then really keeping abreast of the community, abreast of things that are going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian?
I agree. I thought it was a very strong application. I did hear the residents of the Fenway and also encourage regular meetings, quarterly, if not more, to really be able to address the issues that they have, very empathetic to an area that is just rapidly growing and its long-term residents there. I was very impressed with the 25% commitment to people quarries. I thought that was extremely high, and also the pathway to home ownership for employees, particularly given their commitment to diversity and working with people with quarries and having people stay in the city of Boston. I felt like it was a good formula to be able to produce equitable results across the board. So overall, very strong application. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce? Oh, Kathleen, you're muted.
Sorry. I make a motion to grant this applicant a license conditional pending the buffer zone variance.
Second.
All right, we have Commissioner Smith seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And none
Aye.
opposed.
Can I ask just a quick question?
Absolutely.
Are we granting this conditionally, or are we granting it? Because I did hear her say conditionally with the buffer zone, so.
It's conditionally pending obtaining a buffer zone variance, and we will reach out to the Inspectional Services Department to have their refusal letter reissued.
Granted, got it, thank you.
Item 3, the applicant is the Heritage Club, LLC. The proposed license premise is 116 Cambridge Street in Charlestown. The license type is a retail recreational cannabis dispensary license. Proposed hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. This is a certified equity applicant. The date of the initial application was August 13th, 2020. The date of filing with Inspectional Services was September 14th, 2020. The date of the community meeting was October 29th, 2020. For the record, just shortly before this hearing, the district city councilor and the applicant reached out to request a deferral on this matter until the December agenda. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thanks, Leslie. I want to point out before I get into my take on this applicant, as I did with the first applicant, they began this process on August 13th, 2020. That was 3 months ago. I also want to point out the applicant, our staff reached out to the applicant before the hearing and offered them a deferral before they even appeared before us last week. They have met the requirements of our rules and regulations for a complete application. They filed all the materials with us by the last business day of the preceding month. And it's our charge as the board to ensure the equitable siting of these establishments, both in the individuals that are granted a license and in the geographic distribution of these establishments. That being said, they did have a complete application, but I feel strongly that this application needs more work. There are already significant concerns in this neighborhood about traffic. I have even more concerns about an emerging industry like this and the impact it will have on this neighborhood. These are real quality of life issues. I think this application presents an opportunity to get a better understanding of what those impacts would be on this neighborhood. And I think that would be solved by a traffic study. not all applicants appear before us need to have a traffic study, but this location, the traffic that we've heard about, the traffic that I know about in this area, I think it's absolutely within our purview to request that the applicant go back and do the traffic study. I am aware that they are a certified equity applicant before this board, so that opens them up to some resources that the city can offer them. I have no doubt, I do not question their certification as an equity applicant, but I do think the process that they went through in the last 3 months can be improved, and I think that requires more community process. And I think there's real significant differences between this application that we heard last week and some of the other equity applications that we've had before us in the last couple of months.
Thank you. Commissioner Lombos?
Yeah, I would agree with most of what Chairwoman Joyce put out. I actually was going to ask about the transportation study just because we haven't required it before, but it does sound like there's a need for it given all of the public comment on it, and actually wanted to talk to the commissioners about, can we require that, and is that a good thing? So you answered my question on that, Chairwoman Joyce. And I do feel like there were some really good highlights of the application. I thought were great. I liked the supplemental information and explanation about the experience in the real estate industry and offering that the closing costs and all that. That's all great and aspirational. And again, we'd love to support it and figure out a way to utilize the technical assistance, given that it is an equity applicant to do that. But I also have some just concerns about the process and want to make sure that people feel really good about moving forward with it. So similarly to the chairwoman, I think it would be good to even go back to talking to some more of the community partners and in particular the counselor as well. So I would agree with the chairwoman here.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
No need to reiterate what both my colleagues have said. I agree with both the chairwoman and Commissioner Lombos. So some more work needs to be done here.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Same. I agree with all the commissioners and just really think about the process and the traffic plan. And
Commissioner St. Gian?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought there were a lot of great aspects of the application, but definitely thought that in a location like this, a traffic study would be necessary. And I wonder moving forward, and this might be something that the council has to decide as to how, who and when, or where and when traffic studies should be required. I think there are just certain areas in Boston, a lot of areas in Boston, that it would just, it would be, what's the word? We would have to have a traffic study to make sure that that would work for the community. So I would be in favor of deferring until such information was provided.
Leslie, can I just add one more thing that I brought up at with other applicants? I've always questioned whether they're equity, non-equity, but specifically the equity applicants, the ownership. And I know the applicants went into that in detail at the hearing last week, but I want to be sure that the community understands who is before them, who's going to be operating this, whether it's investors that don't, whether or not the investors have an ownership interest is one thing, whether they're part of an incubator program. I think that's helpful to us. And I think the applicants could supplement that to us in writing. We've gotten some great submissions from other applicants moving forward when we've asked these questions. And I think the more transparency we can have, the better. It was confusing to me with what they submitted to us compared to what they testified at and compared to what the community heard. And maybe it's all the same, but it's just a matter of choosing the right words. But I think we need to get that fleshed out in writing as well.
Thank you. And for the record, as a certified equity applicant, they can access funds that have been set aside pursuant to the ordinance for something like a traffic study. So that is entirely possible. Chairwoman Joyce?
Okay, and I want to make a motion, but I want to explain my motion. This is more than just can you submit a new security and operations plan. I feel very strongly that they have to go back and meet with the community again about this location and take into consideration what we find out from the traffic. They were given an opportunity to defer until they had that information before. They did not choose to defer. And I think based on those things, and it's not in a punitive way, but I really feel strongly about the community meeting. Therefore, I make a motion to reject it without prejudice and to let you know that because they are equity, they could be back before us as early as December. They just started this process in August. So I just think process-wise, that's my motion.
Are there any questions regarding the motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, once again, I'm confused. I'm sorry. We're rejecting this with prejudice or without?
Without.
Without. Okay, thank you.
So they can
also,
come back
sorry,
at any time.
Okay.
Okay, good. Just to clarify that, they could come as soon as December.
Absolutely.
Depending on the
Other information, right?
the other information we have, the other applicants we have too.
Okay.
This does require them to submit a new application with the board, but they submitted this one 3 months ago and we're before us today.
Okay.
I think the rejection without prejudice triggers the community meeting, which is very important to me.
Absolutely.
And I'm not convinced that this location is right for this type of business. Some of the ones we deferred, I had no problem with the location. I just wanted more, I wanted a beefed up security and operations plan and some other things. I think there needs to be more process.
Okay.
Rejected without prejudice. And for the record, this does not impact filings with the Inspectional Services Department.
Okay.
And also just to be clear that we don't question their certification as an equity
No.
advocate. So
Right.
just want to make that clear as well.
Absolutely. They are still eligible to access any funds set aside for certified equity applicants. And if they choose to do so, we will make sure to connect them. Item 4, the applicant is HVV Massachusetts, Inc. The proposed license premise is 1937 Beacon Street in Brighton. The license type sought is a retail recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. This is a non-equity applicant. The date of filing of the initial application is July 27th, 2018. The date of filing with the Inspectional Services Department is October 18th, 2018. The date of the community presentation and the community meeting is January 7th, 2019. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you. I just need to get my notes. There was both support and opposition for this, very, very strong opposition from Boston College, which raises concerns for me as far as how they're going to handle that demographic that would be coming into their establishment. I think the location in general is okay. They had a strong diversity inclusion plan. They were taking into account the concerns about the proximity to the college. I still think it has a very strong, it scores very strongly for me with location, safety, and security, and as well as parking and transportation. And I think that's all I have for my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Lombos?
Yeah, I don't have much, just that I did think it was a pretty good D&I plan, a pretty good employment. Unfortunately, the community support score for me was very much lowered because of the opposition and who was in opposition. That does matter. I agree with the chairwoman. And I just had some questions. It does sound like that Chairwoman Joyce is comfortable with the transportation plan. Wanted to also check in with Lisa and others about that. Just some of the parking, there's 2-hour parking and that kind of thing, but I always want to double check with my other commissioners on that transportation plan for sure. But that's all that I have right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
Well, Commissioner Lombos, they submitted some supplemental security information that with the concerns that I had, particularly about talking about the medical for people under 18 and, letting a 21-year-old scored an 18-year-old, that's like giving a firecracker a match. But they supplemented it and said that, you know, it really wasn't for here, and I read that over. I'm very familiar with this area, and I know the proximity to BC, and I hear their concerns. But again, just like I said about the other one down by Berkeley, I think that's going to be something that we really can't do too much about, it being in a college community. If they don't go here to Beacon Street, they're just going to go up the street to Comm Ave. So I mean, other than, you know, some of the lack of support from the community, I think everything else they did and what they supplemented, I think they put together a strong application, and they're just really, really going to have to work hard to ensure that they become somewhat cordial neighbors with BC and work out some kind of plans with them, or just keep the lines of communication open. But other than that, I'm satisfied that they presented a strong application.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I think same thing, concerned a little bit like Commissioner Lamas about the parking around there, but Boston's a college town. So, I mean, there's lots of colleges around here. So it's very difficult to talk about those impacts. So, you know, felt that, you know, I think they would have to work hard with that community because the community is impacted by it. But other than that, I felt they were fine.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian?
Thank you. So I thought it was, you know, strong application. We had approved these applicants in East Boston, so I think the operators are clearly qualified and so forth. I'm really serious concerned about the community engagement and the community notice. I think that, you know, what became clear to me during testimony was that the community felt like they didn't get enough notice on this, and you know, the applicants submitted their first application in 2018. So I imagine there was a lot more done at the front end. And I would just say, moving forward, you know, as applicants come before us, to really think about, if you had a community meeting 2 years ago that went, or even a year or so ago, that it will be really important. I think their community meeting was January 7, 2019. So I think that could also be contributing to what feels like a sense of not being noticed or given enough notice. And so I just really want to implore upon this applicant to go back to the community ASAP and have that conversation and really engage consistently. And I encourage applicants moving forward that you do the same. I know we can't require an additional community meeting, but I really feel like I don't want any community to feel like their input didn't matter. I agree that it is a college town, and so it will be impossible to place, you know, these establishments outside of a half mile of any college campus in Boston. I think it's probably logistically impossible. I do recognize that it's a special circumstance that BU and BC and their size is significant. So as we think about, you know, establishments that we approve moving forward, I think it is going to be a stricter lens, given if this one does move forward. But I do want to recognize the community, their feelings, and understand that they don't feel that they were fully included in the process, at least in the most recently, not necessarily in the beginning.
And Commissioner, I appreciate that. I had the same reservations. Of course, if someone supports an application, they're going to be the first ones to follow the process. And sometimes it's that opposition that falls off and may not get the message that there was another step in the process. So I think this has pointed out some deficiencies in what has occurred, because some of these applications have been around for a couple of years. And I appreciate that. Leslie, should I make a motion?
Yes, please go ahead.
Based on that, because I do think it's very important, and I don't want people to feel disenfranchised and put upon, especially since this is a neighborhood and BC is a big neighbor. I would vote to still grant this license to this applicant with the conditions that they continue to meet with the community and their community partners as they go through the next steps of the process and continuing even as they open. I think it's very important.
Are there any questions on the motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. So granted, with the condition that they continue to meet with the community and community partners as they move forward with the process. Item 5, the applicant is Rooted In LLC. The proposed license premise is 2177 Washington Street, Roxbury. The license type is a retail recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is a certified equity applicant. The date of initial application was September 10th, 2020. The date of the community meeting was September 15th, the date of filing with inspectional services was July 20th, 2020, and the date of the community meeting was September 15th, 2020. This is located within a half mile of an existing cannabis establishment. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you, Leslie. So this is another example of an equity applicant that started the process just a few months ago, and here they are before us, compared to some of the other applicants we've had today that have been in the queue for a couple of years. This was a very good application. In many of the evaluation criteria, they got a perfect score. I did take off a couple of points because of they're not giving a veteran's preference. That's up to them. I understand their reasons, the rationale why, but that stood out to me as a little different. That's their business plan, and I respect that. There were concerns raised in some of the correspondence we got, with this being located close to, I think, Madison Park High School. I think we took a look at that, and they actually are over 1,000 feet from the playing fields of the school and even further from the actual school. So I just wanted to raise that to let you know we do read the correspondence, and I have no other issues with this application.
Thank you. Commissioner Lombos?
Yeah, I'm actually excited about this application. I really liked the pieces around the high goals that then were obviously backed up with a track record of the businesses that are part of that. I liked how it saw themselves as a part of a larger ecosystem in the neighborhood of businesses there, with a coupon program. These were all creative things that I thought were about a larger, neighborhood, a larger business community. I was excited to see that. And I am a big fan of the Haley House model. I think it's a really successful model. So having them cite that is very important, in my opinion, on how it's a success. Again, it's a successful model and should be replicated. So I really am excited about this. And I do think that their aspirational goals are high. Like, given the track record of the businesses that they have experience in, I do think it could really be an exciting applicant. It is an exciting applicant to me.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
Again, I think it was a strong application. I too was very excited about the coupon program and to bring some more vibrancy back to the Dudley shopping area. I think that was a very selfless idea that they thought of to help stimulate the other businesses by giving coupons from their business. So I, like my fellow commissioner, I was very excited about that. Again, I love the Haley House's model, the setup, how they work. So I am in agreement with that. The questions that I had with them about where security and their proximity to the liquor store, they submitted some supplemental information which addressed that. So I'm willing to give them a chance to see if it works and to work it out. So other than that, I'm very strong application.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. Good application. Just, thinking about them activating Dudley Square, Nubian Square. But other than that, I thought it was very good. Thank you.
Commissioner St. Gian?
Yeah, not much more to add. I agree with my fellow commissioners, and also really love the idea of the coupon program, and that is an innovative way as we think about placing these establishments in areas that there are a lot of other businesses, and being able to use an app to be able to pick up at the appropriate time, so there's not so much lining up outside. So I thought that was a great way to really accomplish multiple goals at one time. So so I thought it was really strong.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you. So because of the buffer zone conflict, I make a motion to grant this conditional on the pending buffer zone variance.
Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lombos, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. And again, we will reach out to the Inspectional Services Department to revise the refusal letter to also reflect the buffer zone conflict. Item 617, the applicant is 617 Therapeutic Healthcare, Inc. The proposed license premise is 144 Bowden Street, Dorchester. The license type is a retail recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is a non-equity applicant. The date of initial application was October 10th, 2018. The date of filing with the Inspectional Services Department was October 26th, 2018. And the date of the community meeting was February 19th, 2019. Chairwoman Joyce?
Okay, thank you, Leslie. This was a strong application, and I just want to also note again for the record that this application began in 2018. So here we are. We have some applications that began 3 months ago, some that have been in the queue since 2018. They scored very high for me. They could have scored higher in the community feedback and public support category, but I don't think that diminishes from the application as a whole. They testified at the hearing that they now realize that the ID scanners are best practices, and they spoke to being committed to using those best practices, which I think are very important. And they also several times at the hearing said that they are committed to evaluating their systems and practices to make adjustments to those things as needed, especially the security and operations plan. And I have no other comments right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Lombos?
Thanks. I think this was a fine application. The one thing that I want to just state for the record, I did ask the question about the 10 full-time, 10 part-time, and while that's part of a business model, and certainly other businesses do that as well, I just want to note that while that can be seen as flexibility for the worker, it's really sometimes important to look at not just the lack of benefits that part-time workers don't have, but also we really should be ensuring that in this industry, one job is enough, should be enough. Part-time workers having to piece together 2-3 jobs is not the kind of thing that we want to see in this industry. So I just want to encourage that for applicants to really think through that and make sure that we're not just providing higher wages and benefits, but thinking about full-time work as well, that one job should be enough in this city and in all industries. And then I did note that there was some community opposition, or not as positive, and I wanted to just note that they did in the supplemental letter talk about how they are addressing it, so I did appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
A strong application, and I agree with Commissioner Lombos. My issue with them was that they didn't really have a lot of community interaction, and they hadn't really worked with some of the community groups up there, which I know to be very strong and engaging. So they did supplement us with some plans on how they were going to do better with that. So other than, I think their lack of reaching out to some of the community members, I thought that they had a very strong application.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Same as the other commissioners. And I was thinking about the parking and then also really working strongly with the community groups, which there are a lot of in this area. So other than that, good application. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sankian?
Not much to add, just second the comments of my fellow commissioners that it was a strong application and I would love to see more community engagement.
Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you, and thank you to my commissioners. That's very good feedback. I'm going to make a motion to grant this license. I'm going to ask that the applicant update us on their final employment plan as they roll out the opening of this business, because I think Commissioner Lombos raises some interesting questions that I haven't thought through, and it sounded like the applicant was willing to relook at that as the business model took shape, and to also ask them to continue to work with the community and to update us. I think this might be a question of the application has started 2 years ago, but it would be in their best interest and in the community's best interest to go back out and talk to them again and just give them an update as you move through the city and the state process.
So is the motion to grant conditionally pending the submission of the final employment plan prior to the issuance of the license? And
I think that's a business operations choice. I don't want to force them to change their business model for us, but I would like to see that as they think this through. I realize being granted a license and a host community agreement triggers other things that they can start to think about, specifically the parking and perhaps how they're going to organize their staff. So I still would vote to grant the license, but I would ask them, I just don't want it to be pending upon something, but I would ask them to continue to update the board on these things. I don't think we need to approve the employment plan, but I think it would be good to have that on record.
If the license is granted, we will put a note in the docket that prior to the issuance to request an update. So the motion is to grant the license. Are there any questions on the motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Turning to the two requests for reconsideration. The first is Sons Mass Inc. has requested reconsideration for its application for a co-located recreational cannabis dispensary, medical dispensary, and manufacturing license to be exercised at 931 Hyde Park Avenue in Hyde Park. The applicant is a non-equity applicant and there is a buffer zone conflict. For the record, staff did reach out to the Cannabis Control Commission to inquire regarding their process for vetting applicants that have alleged violations in other states. That is something that the CCC vets. However, under the law, they cannot consider a violation in another state that has been resolved. So regardless of how that violation was resolved, whether it was a payment of fines or whether it was ceasing to operate a certain license, if the violation has been, or the alleged violation has been resolved, that is not considered. If there is an open violation, that would be considered and would go to the suitability of the applicant when they're being evaluated by the CCC. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you, Leslie, for that explanation. This is an example of an application that we had before us in September, and I believe that the applicant heard us, and their supplemental material was very strong. I want to point out that I think their minimum wage they boosted it up to $18.50, which really stands out, and it's something I look at every single applicant. And also, I know there are questions about the community space. I actually think that lends itself from distinguishing this application from the other one within the buffer zone. This is a larger operation. They're actually carving out space within their business to let the community meet. And I think overall what they're proposing is very different than the location that we've approved down the street. I don't think will have a negative impact on the neighborhood.
Thank you. Commissioner Lombos?
Yeah, I agree with our chairwoman Joyce. Definitely stronger application. Really heard. I really do think the applicant was listening to all of our comments. In fact, addressed all of them in very positive ways. So I am glad that they came back, and glad that they heard us, and glad that they addressed, for me, every issue that I had. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
Again, I agree with my fellow commissioners. They did listen. They came back very strong, particularly with the partnering with the union, of hiring a minority construction firm to do the renovation. Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. Nothing else I could say.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Oh, he's on mute.
Sorry, I agree with my fellow commissioners. Thank you. I think they hit their marks when they, in their responses to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian?
I agree with my fellow commissioners, and I think, you know, as applicants come before us, and particularly those that are very well financed and experienced, that you have the opportunity and ability to do more and provide more, and to really set the standard as to, in terms of wages, in terms of labor peace agreements, in terms of hiring, in terms of contracting. You really have the ability to do that. So I saw this applicant when they first came before us as really unfortunate for not doing those things from the beginning, because but I deeply appreciate that they really took our what we said into consideration and are moving forward, not just with words, but actual actions. And so I encourage any future applicants that comes before us to take that into consideration. And I thought it was a strong application.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you. And Leslie, this does have a buffer zone issue. So the motion would be to grant this license conditional upon resolving the buffer zone conflict.
Are there any questions on the motion? Is there a second? Commissioner Smith seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. And again, we will reach out to ISD to amend the refusal letter. The second item for reconsideration is Dragon Vapors LLC has requested reconsideration for its application for a recreational cannabis retail dispensary license to be exercised at 354 to 358 Chestnut Hill Avenue in Alston, Brighton. The applicant is a non-equity applicant. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thank you. And this is another application that was heard at our September meeting. I want to point out they did submit additional letters of support. Those letters of support were from local businesses around the general area, not necessarily from members of the community, which stood out for me. It was very strong opposition. This isn't a reflection necessarily on the operator, but I think that this is just not a good location. It's very small. I think it's going to lead to people pouring into the sidewalk. I just don't think it's a good location at this spot.
Commissioner Lombos?
I agree, Chairwoman Joyce. I had some questions. I mean, they did come back and I still had questions about it. So on they did talk about these using Flow Hub and the appointments ahead of time to decrease some of that, what you're talking about. I honestly would love to hear what other folks are thinking about that, just because they did come back. It wasn't, definite, stronger application, but I do still have some concerns. So would love to hear what our other commissioners say about that.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
Again, the location, I agree with the chairwoman. The location is questionable, and I also feel that even though they came back, I kind of felt like it was a rushed comeback, that he could really, I mean, he's a one-man operation, and I really think he could use a little bit more polishing up on the application just to give us a few more definitive answers. So again, I just want to, I think this needs more. I just think it needs a little bit more refining.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith? Oh, you're on mute.
I agree with my fellow commissioners. Yeah, and I think that, you know, I think Full Hub takes care of some of the issues, doesn't answer for all the community issues that are there, but which I think is good. But location-wise, I think it's problematic. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian?
I think, you know, I also agree with my fellow commissioners. I think they came back definitely with a stronger application, but still with some lingering questions and concerns. And in terms of location, I don't know that those have been addressed. I do appreciate that this is, you know, he is self-funding. He is not necessarily, you know, the opposition, political opposition was strong. I think all of the electeds came out against it in BC. So yeah, I'm just struggling a little bit, because when we look at different applications, just understanding that different people have different access to resources and to you know, and to elected officials, and so I don't want to overly weigh that, but I also can't wrap my head around the location actually working under any circumstances. So yeah.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce?
So Leslie, what he supplemented to us is actually very different from what the community heard and what we heard. I still don't love the location. I think it's very small, and I would have to see more. And I agree, Commissioner Holmes was saying was kind of thrown together. They heard what we said, but I actually think if they had mentioned specifically that they're going to change the hours, if they weren't operating during when kids were at the pool and nearby. Like, I actually think they have to go back to the community and discuss that. They can't just unilaterally change that without feedback from the community. I was inclined to reject it with prejudice because I just don't like the location, but it sounds like the other commissioners are open to letting them resubmit after a community process. Is that what I'm hearing, commissioners? So I don't know. My motion is to reject it with prejudice. I'm open to another motion, but at the very least, I don't think we should rehear this until there's another community process or a new location for this operator. Again, I don't think it's the operator. I'm not comfortable with this location as the application, with everything outlined in the application and the supplemental materials. It would have to go a lot further as far as, you know, how they're going to take into consideration lines, online ordering. Maybe that has to be all the time or at the beginning, and the hours that they plan to be open, and how they interact with how other parts of the neighborhood are, you know, used.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The other thing, yeah, I agree with the community, because all the community support and the stuff that I saw for this business is from Brookline.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing from Alston Brighton or Brighton really supporting this. So, I mean, if nothing else, really needs to do a little bit more work with getting the community involved and getting their support.
And this is already an operating business. It's not like some of the situations where they're paying rent for an empty storefront. Mm-hmm. Leslie, the with prejudice, when can they come back?
So with prejudice, the operator cannot come back at this specific location for 1 year, they could petition the board for an exception to that. It's at the board's discretion.
Yeah, I'm not convinced this is a good location at all. So my motion would be to reject it with prejudice. If he wants to come back in a year with a new application and a new community process, I would reconsider it, given the size of it and its location to some of these other things that were raised in the community process. And again, it's true. The support came from the restaurants and the businesses right in the general area, not from the people that live there.
Right,
Sorry,
and
did I
also-
confuse you?
And I just to clarify, and a question about delivery, that is something that's still being discussed at the state level. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. There are rumors that we might hear something on that tomorrow, but the regulations have not been codified.
Yeah. Yeah. Another reason why I think a year, it makes more sense if he wants this location. If the operator wants this location, because that would make more sense if there was a significant delivery aspect to it, but we don't know that yet.
So the motion is to reject with prejudice, and just to be clear, this with prejudice is a one-year period at this location. This does not prevent this applicant from applying at a different location.
Right. There's no reflection on the operator. It's just this actual location.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. We have one item on old and new business. This is a motion to post the draft amendment to the board's rules and regulations regarding the holiday schedule for cannabis establishments. That draft language is as follows. The Boston Cannabis Board shall issue annually a holiday schedule permitting days and hours of operation of licensees. The annual holiday schedule shall replace any existing restriction regarding holidays in any existing host community agreement. Currently, previously executed host community agreements have a provision that licensees cannot be open on federal holidays or Suffolk County holidays, and this will give the board the option to review the holiday schedule and also look at when retail package stores are allowed to open and operate. Chairwoman Joyce, can you make a motion, please?
A motion to approve this change in hours.
Will be posted and open to a public comment period.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there a second?
Sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed. Those are all the items before the board today. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, everyone who's in attendance.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Everyone, thank you.